My background is doing portraits. I didn't go to art school. I spent years learning to paint in that way, partly as a financial necessity. I had to support myself somehow, and it was a way of getting paid to learn to paint. But it meant that I spent a huge amount of time really studying faces and bodies. And I think having got to a point where I then sort of started to get the hang of it, I became interested in how I could use that genre, that familiar genre, to tell wider stories. My background as a portrait painter made me very aware of how we all communicate in a non-verbal way through our facial expressions. That's very important to the story you tell with a portrait and your sense of who somebody is. When people start to change their faces, particularly with things like facelifts, which move the muscles that are communicating those expressions, which we don't do consciously, this then starts to confuse the messages we're giving off and maybe affecting how we're all communicating with each other without us realizing it. I was fascinated to have the opportunity to go and watch an actual facelift operation, which is obviously a chance not just to see the change, but also the inner workings of something which I spend half my life looking at from the other side.
He's come to observe two operations. The first one was a facelift, which I think was quite interesting for him as a portraitist. The second one was part of the project we're doing at the moment, which is a mastectomy with chest reconstruction. A mastectomy is removal of the breasts in a female wanting to undergo a gender reassignment.
I think one of the things that interested me from the start were the markings on the bodies. The surgeon would draw where they're going to be putting the knife through, basically, a little bit later on. But also it kind of raised this question of whether this cosmetic surgeon is a doctor or an artist, because actually they're not fixing anything that's wrong. They are changing things for reasons of appearance, and therefore surgeons having to make judgments based on what they think will look better. And actually that may differ from one person to another.
You have to see some future outcome of what you're doing.
As an artist, going to watch something and draw a subject where they're physically changing in front of you was in a way a totally new experience, and it made me confront certain aspects of what I do which I never had to confront before. As I started to get more interested in cosmetic surgery as a subject, I realised it'd be better to focus on elective surgery, i.e. people having things done which they don't need to for medical reasons, but are doing it for reasons of appearance, to look younger, healthier, more beautiful. Because I think that was very important. People made this decision to do it for themselves and were doing it therefore for reasons of pressures they felt from the society or just from themselves. But I think it was important because it would tell a wider story about the lengths people are prepared to go in the pursuit of perfection and to solve their problems. So when the Bose Museum asked me to come and do this show, I was partly excited because the Bose is such a famously fabulous place and has such an interesting and diverse collection, but also because it was going to give me the chance to actually focus a whole show on this body of work, and for the first time really a chance to get into the various layers of narrative that are going on with these paintings.
What we've tended to do over the last 5 years is work with important contemporary British artists, but look at a particular aspect of their work. Johnny's obviously become important as a contemporary portraitist, but the surgical series really fascinated me, an aspect of his work which was different to what he was known to be and that we could help promote to a wider audience. I think it's really important for our audience directly, general public, to recognise that people undertake elective surgery for so many different reasons.
I think in some ways the procedures are bigger, more dramatic and more risky than I imagined. At the same time, it's very obvious that for a lot of people it's a really transformational thing, and if something can be changed about you that will have a beneficial effect on the rest of your life, then why should we be judgmental and say people shouldn't do it? I think the main thing is that it's one of those areas where there's a certain taboo about it still, and that people have made up their minds in advance, and actually there's a lack of understanding of the processes, and therefore if this show does anything, hopefully it'll help people understand what's involved a bit more and make better informed judgments in the future.